Welcome to a special edition of ABNcast, one of three recorded at the recent UATP Airline Distribution conference held in Budapest. The event was an opportunity for some leading players in the industry to get together and discuss the emerging trends in airline retailing and payments. I hope you enjoy this episode, in which we speak to three experts about their views on the challenges and opportunities for the airline industry.
Okay, so we've had a busy day and a half. This is the final interview here at the UATP Airline Distribution Conference in Budapest in Hungary. I'm joined by Jermey Dyball, who is the VP Airlines and Travel for a company called Shift4. Okay, so Shift4, why don't you explain what Shift4 is and what do you do?
Well, actually, before we even do that, what I'd like to do is talk about basically the whole fact that the airline payments market is evolving quite rapidly.
Yeah.
It's something actually I've been fortunate to be involved in for the last 15 or so years.
Yeah. Would you call yourself a veteran?
Well, I got the grey hair to go with it anyway. So, so a bit of a veteran maybe. Yeah. But I've worked for an airline and I've worked for an acquirer, which is the organization that moves the money around. Yeah. And then the payment gateway as well.
You've seen it in almost all.
Seen different, kind of more of a 360 view, which is kind of a fun and privileged perspective on the way the whole payments market works. So literally, I got a few months ago, I got the opportunity. I was actually approached by Shift4 to say, "Would you like to join and build out the airlines and travel acquiring team?"
Okay.
So that's what I'm here.
From scratch? They didn't have one before?
No, to be fair, they've been doing it for a year or two already. They've got a good number of customers, and so we just want to accelerate the good stuff that they've already been doing.
Relatively new, but we last met a couple of weeks back in London, actually, at another payments event, and you couldn't quite say, in fact, you couldn't say officially what.
It was all a bit secret squirrel at that point.
But now you're.
But now it's fully open. I've been in Shift4 for 3 weeks now.
Okay.
So just getting my feet under the desk. Yeah. And
first public appearance.
We even had a stand here as well, and it was just nice to be able to talk to the partners and also the merchants themselves, just to understand kind of what they're doing, what their pain points are, and how we might work together.
Yeah. Before we get into all that, there's been a lot of chat over the last day and a half on that topic. Shift4 itself, just tell us about. Has it got an interesting founder?
It's interesting, because it's sort of 20 plus years old, and it was founded by Jared Isaacman, who is still involved in the company, but he's not CEO anymore because he recently got invited to be CEO or chief exec of NASA.
Right. Okay.
So he's moved across, but obviously he still takes an interest and he's a shareholder. Yeah. But the organization he built is pretty interesting. It obviously home is the US, but they have quite an international footprint already. I was talking to our team in Beijing a couple of days ago, and we've got people all over, and a lot of the clever people are based in Europe as well. And literally we're looking at what product enhancements are required in payments for the future to really deliver on market needs.
Yeah, well, let's go into that. And you've heard a lot on stage what the needs may be. A lot of airlines have been on stage this week. So where do you think Shift4 can make a real difference? Where do you need to make a difference in the industry?
Well, there's different things for different segments of the market. But obviously the whole GDS traffic is not going to go away. And even some of the online travel agencies actually sell through the GDSs in the back office. Yeah. So we basically can take the payments in the BSP, so the travel agency sales. We don't do the authorizations, but of course you need to have somebody to actually make the money transfer. Right. And this is a provider needs to have a license by region so that you can get global licenses, particularly for airlines, but even those are not fully global. So you need to have a combination of cross-border and domestic, and that's what we're doing to try and address market needs.
Yeah. What about innovation? Lots of sessions on tech, innovation, and IT. Where do you see the real innovation in payments coming?
Well, I mean, part of it is customer choice. Yeah. Because of course it's like the standard card is Visa, MasterCard, Amex, Diners, UATP, of course. These cards are the ones that have basically created the market, and for a lot of the B2B travel, that's what's required. but also you need market-specific solutions. Everyone talks about, Ideal in the Netherlands, that's obviously more B2C. In Spain, we have Bithum as well, which is, again, bank transfer.
Yeah.
And the whole kind of customer choice and fragmentation, which obviously has cost implications because cards are typically the more expensive way of doing things.
Right.
But they offer the flexibility. So you try and offer a portfolio of payment options, and then the merchants and their consumers decide what they want to do.
Yeah. Talking to flexibility, one of the sessions was on buy now, pay later as an option. That's clearly very flexible for a customer, especially for travel where the basket value is obviously usually very high.
Yeah.
Especially if you're a family going on holiday. There's always been a bit of concern about, the regulators are all over, that's particularly in Europe. So there's a degree of regulation for the reason being that you're putting people into a situation where they owe money, obviously, and that's very important that you regulate that. But you see that there's quite a lot of optimism that is a growing trend now, and that maybe the airlines haven't leapt on that quite as quickly as some of the OTAs will be.
Yeah, I think it is, because obviously people, if they're going on holiday, it's probably once, maybe twice a year. They're booking a long way in advance, and if they want to be a little bit more comfortable, a bit more leg room, and they'll have a better hotel at the other end of the route, they may not have the money for that. They could potentially put that on a credit card, but not everyone's comfortable with that or even has a credit card.
Yeah.
So having a financing option, buy now, pay later, I think is perfect. It just allows people to treat themselves, and typically it's not always the consumer who pays for that splitting of the payment across multiple
Installments.
Installments. Thank you. So it gives people the choice. They could spend a little bit more and they're not paying it all at one time.
Yeah.
So they can have multiple paychecks coming in before the final bill is due.
There's talking of split, there's also other model we saw this week, split payments.
Yeah.
Both in terms of if you're paying for a group, but also...
I'll mention them by name. The hands-in guys, I quite like. And one of their use cases was the fact that you're buying an expensive trip. Maybe you've only got credit limit left on your card of 1,000 and you want to spend 1,400.
Yeah.
Then they give you the option of splitting the payment across multiple payment methods. And I like that. It's nice. It's a bit of innovation.
Yeah.
And I just wish I'd come up with that kind of idea myself.
Very young founder and startup, who's in his 20s. I mean,
Exactly.
Amazing to get it this far.
Yeah. So
we'll see how that goes. There's a couple of people doing that sort of thing. It seems to be getting very complicated, though, isn't it? I mean, all these different payment options, it adds complexity. So the danger is it becomes just more and more complicated. Is it the job of Shift Forward to sort of simplify it for the airlines, for the merchants? So
that is the people who win in the payment space are the people who make it simple for the consumers, simple for the whole back office reconciliation process, because obviously if you've got multiple transactions and money coming in at different currencies, the merchants, the airlines, the OTAs, whoever they are, somehow have to figure out where the money is and whose money it is and all of those things. So we have a way of simplifying it. Of course, that's the whole reporting and reconciliation. But that becomes a bit of a hygiene factor. And if you can't do that, you can't play in this space. And then there's a few interesting things we can do on top of that as well.
That kind of thing feels like a great use case for AI. It's sorting through huge amounts of data no human being could possibly cope with on their own. Absolutely, big brains are not that big. But that's what AI. Do you see AI, the application of AI, being most?
I think so. I mean,
useful in that area.
Of course, there are a number of buzzwords you have to use these days. AI is one of them, and I guess I'm long in the tooth enough to have been around when the internet it was first out there, and you could kind of look at, flight itineraries and things, but you couldn't really buy. And it took a few years, 5-6 years for it to become an interesting mechanism to actually buy an airline ticket.
Yeah.
And AI, I think, is in a similar situation where the technology is there, but the use cases still haven't been fully perfected. And I think, though, that it will make life simpler. It will speed up this whole back office reconciliation, and also go and find better itineraries for people. So getting between Madrid and where this conference is here in Budapest, there's a few direct options, and maybe I'd have taken the train if I'd figured out a way of actually achieving that as well.
Yeah.
So if AI can, find a better, quicker, cheaper way of getting some
more sustainable, I think.
more sustainable as well,
especially for the corporates.
Yeah.
Just before we finish up, you like to say you've got a lot of experience in this realm from very different perspectives. From what you've heard the last day and a half, do you come away from this kind of thing feeling positive about the future? Do you think positive about changes coming, and there's positive change and it'll come quickly?
Yeah, well, I think there will be changes. Is the only constant in the travel industry, and I guess it's the same with the modern world as well. So change is going to be there. So the people who win, and I think Shift 4 in this category, are the people who respond to change as well, and actually then figure out where the potential options might be, and maybe sort of nudge the change in one direction or another that suits the consumer requirements a little bit more.
Yeah. It's that idea of being agile and being able to spin things up quickly and actually bringing the industry along with it, because it is tough there. There's a lot of reasons why and the airline industry doesn't move as quickly as maybe they could do. Because it's available, but
you've got different countries, you've got different regions, regulations, there's data, there's tax.
Yeah.
There's all of these things that need to be considered. And as I say, there's not many players who can do what we do. We're probably in the forefront. And I can just see us serving on the wave of future technology.
Cool. Okay. Jeremy, good to see you.
Brilliant.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thanks for seeing it, and thanks for joining ABNcast. That's great.
Thanks very much.
Okay, so one of the great things about coming to events like this is you meet old contacts that you've known for a very long time. So next to me and joining us in the ABNcast studio here at the UATP Airline Distribution Summit is Roberto De Re, who is
CEO of Travel Ledger.
CEO of Travel Ledger.
One of many hats, but at the moment, Travel Ledger.
For this purposes of this interview, or Travel Ledger. Just explain quickly what Travel Ledger is and what it does.
Travel Ledger is a B2B settlement and payment platform specializing in the travel industry. So we leverage digital banking technology and data manipulation in order to automate the settlement between B2B partners up and down the supply chain.
Okay.
Primarily in the cruise space, tour operator, but now we're also expanding into airlines, and which is why I'm here at the UATP conference.
Is that because airlines are coming to you for the solution, or
a little bit of both?
Yeah.
We already have some airlines that use our services for their holiday divisions, Jet2 Holidays, EasyJet Holidays, and all that. So that we basically manage their account receivable for all of their agents.
And that's for their agents. So they're paying suppliers through you, or
they collecting money
from the customer
from the travel agent.
Yeah.
For the B2B sales.
Right.
And then companies on the platform, some of the tour operators that are on the platform, also themselves are sellers on one side because they sell to other travel agents.
Yeah.
But they also themselves buy from accommodation suppliers, hotel chains, and all of that.
Yeah.
So it's only primarily large amounts between big businesses that need to move a large amount of money the cheapest possible way.
Yeah, okay. A lot of talk about bringing down the cost of distribution, which we talked about a lot on stage.
Absolutely.
I'm just finally, before we move on from Travel Ledger itself, what was the niche, what was the opportunity you saw when you founded Travel Ledger?
Well, taking the airline industry as an example, BSP, ARC has existed, for 45 years. The airline industry always had a standard when it comes to travel documents, invoicing, payments, and all that. But the rest of the industry never had that. Yeah. So the rest of the industry has always been sending to each other, Excel spreadsheets, PDF invoices, and all of that. So the idea, once we saw the changes coming into the legislation with the forced banks to open up their API, when fintech was born in 2011, 2012, I saw the opportunity to create a payment network with a lot less investment and overheads by leveraging that functionality to bring the same economies of scale and the same standards to the rest of the industry.
Right.
And that's what has happened already in the UK. Yeah. If you're a travel agency in the UK selling other people's products, you have a Travel Ledger account, you pay all your suppliers via Travel Ledger.
I know originally, because I remember when it set up, it was in the period when everyone was talking blockchain, and I know there was a link there to blockchain, and that's kind of, you've dialed down that a little bit, but it's still there, isn't it? It's still...
Well, no, we don't use blockchain anymore, but that gave us the philosophy of the platform.
Okay.
So we still use it's the transparency as far as the data is concerned, immutability, encryption, and also we took some concept from the blockchain world and we applied it to the platform that we built. But blockchain was not ideal for example, it's not ideal to move large amounts of data, which is what we do.
Okay.
So in fact, we move more data than anything.
So it's slightly inspired by blockchain, so the principles around it, the ideas around it, but it wasn't the answer.
Correct. And the technology wasn't really mature at the time to do what we wanted to do.
Yeah.
So after a few experimented, we focused on the business.
Blockchain presumably has matured in that time, and actually we'll go into what you were talking about in your panel about the innovations that are coming up. What one was stablecoin, and you know, again, it's gone a bit quiet because crypto's had its issues, quite high profile, but you get the feeling that it's bubbling along underneath the radar.
Absolutely, and I think blockchain at one point was touted as the solution to everything. And then I think now people realize that it's not the solution for everything, but it has some really, really interesting use cases. Stablecoin being one. Payments. Blockchain really was born out of the payment industry, peer-to-peer payments, simplifying payments. And one of the comments I made on the panel, I think that stablecoins actually, for example, can make it easier to settle from certain countries where otherwise moving funds via the banking network is complicated or is expensive.
That's where you saw some opportunity to emerging new markets. There's not really the guardrails in place for money movement.
That's right. The irony is that in some of these markets, if you look at Africa, South America, the blockchain exchanges and networks are actually more sophisticated and more connected than the traditional banking infrastructure in those countries. They've left over, exactly. And so in those markets, it's easier for somebody to, move money to an exchange, buy some stable coins, and then use the any network, Ethereum or whatever, Solana, to actually move those funds abroad.
So in some ways, where blockchain became, it was for a while the thing everyone was talking about in any tech summit. What the new blockchain is AI.
Yes.
Again, you can't have a tech summit or even any kind of summit these days without AI being talked about. So it was talked about a lot, and on your panel. Yeah. You made a good point about one of the dangers of AI is once you get AI bots doing all the search, you look to book ratios have gone ballistic anyway. I think mobile had a massive impact on that. We're about to hit another. We're talking I think someone said it, between 8 and 25 times more. So look to book ratio or worse look to book ratio.
Yeah, somebody was talking about 45,000 searches to a booking.
Yeah.
So
explain why that's such a looming threat. How are we going to mitigate that?
There are a couple of things. AI in itself is an incredible technology. It's going to change our lives. But like everything, it has multiple applications. So what AI can do from a customer service automation perspective, great, and it's very easy for everybody to kind of come to terms with. The areas that are still a little bit up in the air are the areas of, what if AI becomes the only user interface that consumers have with the internet and with e-commerce.
Yeah.
And that's where, if you can imagine, talking to your AI agent and say, go off, do this for me, do the search and do the other thing, that's where you get, look, the book ratios are going to go up.
Because you can be out there continually shopping for every kind of ramification and every kind of complex mix of itineraries and
absolutely. So it because it can do it automatically, it's going to be able to generate a lot more traffic than a human being tapping on a keyboard.
Filter the results and then send you the best 2 or 3. But
exactly, and that's where the second danger comes in. That if I've got the AI going out, doing all these searches, and then filtering the results, then actually the only way that the AI can do that is by knowing my preferences.
Yeah.
So the AI I'm speaking to is what knows my preferences, not the retailer anymore.
Yeah.
Today, if I go to a retailer website, especially if I'm a repeat customer, they can learn about me.
Yeah.
But if the AI gets in the middle,
Yeah.
then the
So it's
AI is anonymous. So the risk is that the retailer is going to lose sight of the customer because the AI is going to get in the middle. And let me share a piece of information that I mentioned on the panel. A friend of mine works for a big marketing agency, and now when you go to Google, for example, and you do a search, you do Brave AI and do a search, at the top of the page, not for everything, but often at the top of the page, you get an AI response.
Yep. Yep.
You know what they found? That when the AI response is displayed, all the other advertisers, the click rate drops by 50%.
I'm not surprised. I mean, you've all done it.
Yep.
I want an answer. There it is.
There it
Don't need
is.
to click on anything.
Correct.
So now your sponsored content, and then your organics even further down, isn't it?
Exactly. So then the question is, I was listening to Google recently talk about how they're implementing AI with their partners. Okay, they talk about partners. So what does that mean? That the Google AI is only going to return the content from the partners?
Well, Google have to make money some way.
Exactly, exactly. So I think the big question mark that I think the travel industry, but any e-commerce companies need to look at in the next 12 months is, with AI and AI agents coming into play, who's going to control the top of the funnel?
Yeah.
Because there is the risk to lose that
when
control.
You say it's not the customer but it is an AI version of you, isn't it?
Well, yes, but
isn't it the same thing because it's so like you that it is essentially you?
Yes, but the supplier doesn't know that is you because they see the AI. That same AI comes to them 10,000 times a day for different people. Right. They cannot distinguish you anymore.
Right. Yeah.
Because today the way they distinguish is by putting a cookie on your website, so they know it's you, but they're not going to know that it's you anymore.
And the age-old question of who owns the customer, the answer is
absolutely.
the AI bot I use.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And now, with all this, we're at an airline conference, everybody talks about NDC.
Yeah.
What is the key of NDC? The fact that I can do an offer to the client, I can recognize the client, and I can make him a specific offer. But if I don't see the client anymore, who's that? The whole thing
all that muddies the waters as well, because personalised offers, personalised content, continuous pricing or dynamic pricing. Where are the standards in that? What is the price? It doesn't exist anymore.
Exactly, because you lose sight of the persona, you lose sight of the individual customer on the other side, because the AI is going to filter that out.
Yeah.
And then it's all going to be about which AI do you trust versus the one that I trust.
Yeah.
And another interesting thing is, because AI sounds like a human being, the power of AI of influencing your choices is much stronger than if I just give you a list of results.
Yeah.
So if you do some searches on YouTube, you can find it easily. They talk about how AI, because it's perceived by our mind as another human being or a human language.
It's like an agentic thing, is it? Yeah,
it's the agentic. You're more likely to be influenced by the AI than if you just get a result, which is why influencers are so influencing, because you're talking to another human being, to a real person. But the AI, even if you know that it's not a real person, your brain might not actually
I saw one in a conference recently, and it was a live demo.
Yeah.
It sounded exactly like speaking to a real person. They even gave it a female voice and an English accent, because the feeling was that's more trustworthy, or the sense that's more trustworthy.
Yeah.
So, well, look, our time is up, but it sounds like it's very complicated times ahead, and I don't know whether that's a good thing for the industry or not. But
I think,
final word on that: is it good? Is it good that all this is happening?
I think there's always opportunities whenever there's massive change happening. There's going to be some winners, and inevitably there's going to be some losers. But we have to try to look for the opportunity. First movers are always going to have a better chance. Yeah. So think about it now.
Yeah. Travel Ledger, a first mover.
Well, in what we're done, yes.
You were.
We still are a little bit ahead of the times. Yeah. Things always take a little bit longer to happen, but at least if you start thinking about it early, when it does happen, you're there ready to go.
Cool. Roberto, thanks for that. Good to see you again.
You're very welcome.
Yeah, cheers. Thanks a
See
lot.
you.
Okay, so Jorge Diaz has joined us in the ABNcast, the temporary ABNcast studio here at UATP's Airline Distribution Summit in Budapest. Jorge is the CEO of a company called AirGateway. Welcome, thanks for joining us.
Thank you so much.
Just quickly explain AirGateway. What do you do, and why are you interested in the payment side of things? What's your role?
We're actually in between. I mean, payments is not our core business, but of course, it's always closely related.
Yeah.
We do distribution, actually, and of course, distribution involves payments, right?
Yeah.
Our core business is distribution. We're one of the, let's say, new players in the distribution space that came upon the, let's say, invitation from the airlines to open a bit distribution space.
Yeah.
And not limited to the existing stakeholders.
Providing a bit of competition.
Yeah. We provide some competition.
Yeah.
Exactly. So we're one of those.
Yeah. So specifically, you're in this new world of new distribution capability, which is we don't need to go through the 15 years of development of that. But it's with us. It's here. A lot has was spoken in the last day and a half about it. But that's what you're specifically about, getting that NDC content from the airlines and out into the retailers.
Put it on the seller side.
Oh, yeah.
Facilitated for the seller side.
Yeah.
And yes, so we're an NDC aggregator, and very much contributing to open a bit the industry.
Yeah. So you're on a panel earlier, and we were talking specifically about airlines becoming retailers, and I think the conclusion was that airlines need to become retailers,
Or at least they want.
And they've got a long way to go, potentially. Some are maybe further ahead than others, but even ones really far ahead aren't that far ahead. There's a lot of work to do. Why? Just explain why, for some people who don't get why it's so difficult to do this in the airline world. Why is it difficult for an airline simply to become a retailer? I mean, it seems like the most simple thing.
Well, let's say that there originally, before Interacame, the airlines themselves, the foundational model that worked for them back in the 80s was pretty much delegate completely all those processes to the well-known GDS, Global Distribution Systems.
Yeah.
This, of course, had a cost, let's say, in terms of ownership and controlling this process. Of course, GDS do their own business, and maybe not always willing to follow the same interests, or not always willing to follow the interest of the airlines. Also, to be fair, it's very complex. As soon as you put in the picture legacy systems, legacy 24/7 real-time systems, everything becomes very, very delicate and very, very complex to change, to touch, to change. This is tough. It's a complex technique.
It is. NDC was meant to bring back control to the airline, and to a degree, I think it was said earlier in one of the last panels, the word control was used. It has brought back control to the airlines, but actually that's added complexity to the airlines, because then they suddenly are in control of elements of retailing they weren't in control of or weren't even touching before. So there's swings and roundabouts in this, but ultimately I think there's really now a broad agreement that whether it's NDC or whatever it is, that this move to become more in control of your product and your retailing is how airlines make more money in the future.
Yes, still, I think most of them still in the control battle stage, let's say. But I think they're succeeding. Most of them, specifically the European ones, I think they're very advanced in this journey.
Yeah.
And once you have the ownership, that's precisely when you achieve the autonomy to do whatever you want, to go whatever you want, and to make an story. And so they're still in the conquer and own stage, let's say.
Yeah.
But I think it's doing well for them, and I think we'll make it to the point where we will see probably completely different retailing stories from each airline group.
Yeah, and it might be different airline to airline. They've all got their different strategies. I mean, just think about the low cost area, where probably low cost have got the greatest opportunity here, because they're not usually burdened down with the legacy as much as more full service carriers are. So, but when you look at some of the low cost guys, we're thinking particularly maybe in the UK market, you've got EasyJet, which have very much gone down the EasyJet holidays and more of a tour operator route, so that they are a retailer, but they're certainly a tour operator, you would say. Jet2 was mentioned earlier as well, and Jet2 very much is a tour operator or a holiday company. And then Ryanair on the other side is Ryanair is the biggest airline in Europe, but you'd say Ryanair does retail quite well. I mean,
the low-cost carriers were digital born, let's say. They came with the internet at the same time. So they have their B2C channel that normally they started selling literally 100% of their inventory through that channel. So they were natural born retailers, let's say. They didn't have to do any journey, any transformation. Actually, ironically, the other way around. Now they're starting to consider
they reversed into
other channels, which is not only their B2C channel.
Yeah.
We see agreements and movements towards corporate travel, and I think Ryanair has been added to Concur recently, right? So it's a big move. And as I said in the panel, I mean, there's ironically, it happens that if the full service carriers did such a move, because they had the feeling that they need to compete with the low-cost carriers, which have full ownership of their retailing capabilities. Ironically, is now that the low-cost carriers are also converging in some sort of NDC-alike strategy.
Yeah.
And it's happening. It's happening.
Is NDC critical to this? I mean, it's been around a long time. It's taken a long time to start adopted it. There's still question marks around it even today. Is it essential, or can you bypass NDC entirely?
NDC, I mean, there's no way to bypass NDC because it's the airline themselves, is a bypass of the airline themselves to other platforms, right? Yeah. So it's the airline getting full ownership of, so it's not easy to bypass. If only the airline could bypass, they're not going to bypass themselves. So so it's pretty. It's an approach. It's only in standard. It's an approach to get this full ownership, but once it happens, I think it's pretty here to stay.
Yeah.
It's not something that you can disrupt easily.
Yeah. Okay. So we've had a day and a half of sessions and talk on stage. AI is mentioned a lot. Anything that you heard this week, you're an expert in this industry, you probably know it all and you've heard it all before, but anything that was said this week that you think, that's interesting, it's or surprising or optimistic or makes you come away thinking there's something in that?
Yeah. I'm an expert only in my niche, which is very specific, very the bottom layers of the distribution. To be honest, I mean, of course, we hear AI all around. We've been for many years hearing about the blockchain as well.
Yeah.
I'm a bit precisely because of the hyper legacy nature of the root systems of all the industry. I'm a bit skeptical to think that this new technology is absolutely disrupting at all levels. Well, not on all levels.
Yeah.
Can join at this very bottom of the industry, in the layers, in the very bottom layers. I think the application will be more on the surface, more on the customer face, or in the upper layers. But when it comes to pricing and things like that, it's very difficult to plug into. And this is back again what we were talking about. That's why these legacy systems are so resilient and so difficult to change because of the critical aspect of themselves. So
they work, even if they're not optimized. They work.
And of course, they respond to this principle. If it works, don't touch it. Right?
Yeah.
But it's very difficult to drive such a completely different approach to technology, such as AI, to these layers of the industry. So I'm a bit skeptic when it comes to that. We'll see, but not the other way around in the upper layers.
Yeah. The key message always constantly said is offering choice to the customer. It's that focus, isn't it? To say, look, if we're going to transact more, if we're going to convert more, if we're going to offer the choice and the option that the customer is demanding, we've got no choice these days. We've actually got to do that, because if we don't do that, you simply won't get the business. I mean,
it is precisely on the other layers, on the customer phase and the traveler phase layers where I see more this technology is much more applicable, that would be easy to disrupt than in the bottom.
There's interesting ways of paying. The buy now, pay later model. Still, it's been around a while, but there's definitely gaining momentum. Maybe airlines have been slower in adopting that than the OTAs, but it's happening. Just a thought before we finish on the airline industry itself, just more broadly, the economics of the airline industry. This is all about working out how airlines themselves can be more profitable. There's a perception out there that maybe airlines make enough money. Why do they need to make any more? But I think anyone in the industry understands that actually that's not really the case. And how important is it that this part of the industry does become more profitable operationally for the health of the overall industry?
Okay, I mentioned before that somewhat at some point the motivation of full service carriers to compete more directly with local carriers, they felt that they had to do this huge transformation, and probably one of the first steps is to lower their distribution cost, which in the case of low cost is nearly zero, if not zero, but very low cost compared to the full service carrier. So I think that's what they're doing. It ships a bit everything together. It's control, it's ownership. It's cost. Everything is heavily connected. It's hard to separate. I mean, that's also why this step is very big and requires such a long time implementation, because it's operational, commercial, and technical. It's all in one kit.
And finally, it's obviously we're in a global industry. There are players coming up with solutions in the US and Americas, in APAC, and so on. Europe's a very strong European market for tech and aviation. Do you see Europe as being one of the places where innovation and solutions are emerging?
When it comes to distribution, in our life, not specifically by region. As you said, there's quite a number of players in Europe, in the Middle East. Of course, this is a global transformation. Besides probably the U.S. market, which is in particular because of the competing scheme, we're not able to push it that efficiently as European carriers. Besides U.S., I would say that's happening at the global scale. We as a European company, we have customers, airlines all around from all the continents, and sellers from 45 countries. So it's but it's of course it's coming new players more often.
Yeah. Okay, our time's up. Thanks for that. Good to see you this week, and all the best. See you around soon.
Thank you.
Cheers. Bye.